Hello and welcome to this Schibsted webinar. I am Erica Treijs and I will be your host today. Usually I work at Svenska Dagbladet, but today I'm with you from this beautiful island of Careborg. Well, I'm here on a scholarship, but it's not me we're going to talk about. This is our second webinar based on our Trend Outlook Schibsted Future Report. Today we will dive into what has been changing the world for more than a year now, and also just in the wrong direction. It's all about Corona. But let's start with what says more than 1,000 words. These pictures were taken by photographers from Schibsted newspapers in both Norway and Sweden. And today we will focus on how this pandemic has affected us, both in remote modus and how it will affect us in the future. And we hope to give you some concrete learnings, inspirations, and also share emotions. And I have some really interesting guests with me today. At first, I like to welcome Anna Careborg, publisher at Svenska Dagbladet. Hi, Anna. I just told the audience that I am on the island of Careborg. Where are you?
I'm actually at work in the Schibsted office in the center of Stockholm. But I'm in such a huge building and there's so few of us here.
Oh, that's true. And it's I don't know, it doesn't feel too good to be there alone, I can guess. But if you describe this last year in just one sentence, what would you say?
I would say a very unpredictable, in many ways intense year that has turned almost everything upside down.
So true. And very early in the pandemic, we also lost one of our dear colleagues at Svenska Dagbladet in COVID-19, the photographer Thomas Oneborg. Perhaps this will be a bit emotional and even personal, but I worked with Thomas on his very last assignment. We were following this ambulance team when they met their first Corona patient. And of course, I can tell if Thomas got infected at that very special moment. But either way, we lost him to Corona. So what do you remember from those first days and when you got the news that he has actually passed away, Anna?
Well, for me, it was like a frozen moment. I remember being home in the hallway when my colleague called, and I couldn't really grasp it. I knew that Thomas had been homesick like many others, but from that, not even being in the hospital to the fact that he passed away was very difficult to take in. So I remember asking several times if they had checked that he wasn't really breathing. So for me, I think the loss of Thomas was a reminder that behind every number that we report is a human being. And I also think that being so early in the pandemic was kind of a wake-up call for me. As an editor-in-chief, I had to consider what we were facing and what I sent the colleagues into, really. So it was kind of hard decisions to make.
It's been a time of sorrow, and many of you out there as well, I guess, have lost loved ones. But you, Anna, you were in charge, and we couldn't meet in person. How did you handle the situation as the leader of Svenska Dagbladet?
Actually, that was one of the worst things, I think, not being able to get together and mourn. And I realized this year that the importance of ceremonies, both when mourning and celebrating. And I think that as human beings, we need to feel that kind of belonging when we are in the darkest and almost and lightest also moments in our lives. So, and being in a newsroom, everyone's instinct is to gather at work, and we couldn't even meet. And there were so many emotions, of course, great sorrow, but also uncertainty, fear, even guilt. Could we have done anything differently? So for me as a leader, I wanted to be transparent and inform everyone about what we knew and what we did not know. We, of course, offered professional help. We had a ceremony where we lit candles in our homes in Stockholm, in Sweden, and around the world to honor Thomas. We also created a digital memory book, and I know that the colleagues of Thomas put together some of his photos from over 30 years at Svenska Dagbladet. I think it also was important to see the different reaction of the loss. Some colleagues, they really needed to work, and some couldn't at all. So it was different like that.
So true. I was working 24 hours back then. But at Svenska Dagbladet, we have produced like thousands of articles about Corona. Are you satisfied with the covering of what is described as the biggest change in modern history?
Well, in the beginning, I wrote a comment what the readers could expect from us, and I think it's up to them to evaluate that. But I realized three things. The importance of investigative and in-depth reporting in these huge news events, like having a team several weeks in the intensive care, coming close for real. I'm also proud that we, in some occasions, resisted the super fast news and waited for important information, like a few minutes or hours sometimes, to get it all correct. And I think that is having, the readers in front rather than being, in the competition of being first with information. I also think that since it's been a time of so much uncertainty and mistrust between debaters, it's so important with journalism that provide different perspectives, and that we are trying to be as transparent as possible how journalism works and how we do our work, really.
Absolutely, but knowing what you know today, is there anything that you should or would have done differently when it comes to coverage?
I think that especially in the beginning, there was such a need for information and guidance. I think I would have scrutinized more, and it's nothing unique for Svenska Dagbladet. It's something that we've discussed in Sweden and internationally, I know.
Well, we also need to talk about risks, because you actually let a team go straight into the dragon's nest. 2 colleagues spent several weeks in intensive care to see what COVID could be when it hits really hard. Can you talk us through the thoughts and the discussion before you said, well, go, let's do it?
Well, we had a new challenge, a virus, and especially the photographers, they have to be out there in the front line. So for me, it was very important not to force anyone, and also to take all the precautions that we could really. But this was shortly after Thomas died, so it was hard. But I think that the essence of journalism is going out there and be there even if it's dangerous. And in some ways, it was a way of honoring Thomas, because he was a super brave and dedicated photographer.
But what about you? Were you ever afraid? I mean, journalists are meant to be out there, even if it is a war situation. But what was the worst scenario?
I think, well, I wasn't really afraid, but I felt a huge responsibility for the team. And I think that in some way, the stakes were so high, it had to be worth it. And I mean, we were in the greatest crisis in modern history. So we were obliged to go out there, not only to report here and now, but for posterity.
True. But I can tell that it all turned out very well. It actually ended up in a prestigious award. Thomas's close colleague, Staffan Löfstedt, he actually took the picture of the year in Sweden. On that assignment, or maybe it was the following up, I don't really remember, but it was the picture of the year. That's huge, right?
Yeah, it was fantastic. I was really touched. I cannot think of anyone more worthy that award this year than Staffan.
That's true. Let's listen to Staffan when he got the award.
Berätta lite grann om bilden och tillkomsten.
Ja, det här är ett reportage som Åsa Erlandsson och jag gjorde för Svenska Dagbladet om IVA-ambulansen, alltså intensivvårdsambulansen. Så den här bilden är tagen utanför SÖS källaringång egentligen. Den skiljer väldigt mycket omsorgen om patienten. Ambulansföraren står med hennes tillhörigheter i papppåsen. Det är oerhört koncentration för att hon ska få bästa möjliga vården. Och så står... Ja, förlåt.
Nej, jag ser den här personen som står där långt bak med armarna.
Precis, och han står där och väntar. Och så bakom det här som pågår så är det en fabrik av vård som bara väntar på att ta emot och ge patienten den bästa vård som finns.
One big award, thousands of stories, people working from home. It's been a different year, Anna. Any other concrete learnings?
Well, one learning is that we've delivered journalism without anyone being in the newsroom. And I didn't think that was possible before. And I think that being at distance made us more efficient. But the price is the lack of new thoughts and ideas, the creative part. And sometimes in video meetings like this, we tend to meet the same people, so we tend to be in silos. But in some cases, actually, this pandemic has brought us tighter together. I mean, our colleagues abroad, they can attend digital meetings in a whole new way now. And that's led actually to us recruiting outside of Stockholm. And I think that in the future, we will not, travel for a couple of hours meeting that we did before.
That's true. And we have managed to report from our home offices. But when will we meet in person? When can we grab a coffee or have a laugh together? I miss that. What do you miss the most, Anna?
Yeah, it sounds like a cliche, but I really miss the little things, the small talks in between meetings that I didn't even notice that gave me so much energy. Now everything is so serious and effective. And so when we can come back to the office, I sure will appreciate the small talk in a whole new way.
Good, I promise to buy you a coffee then. Thank you, Anna Careborg.
Thank you.
So it's time for our next guest, Schibsted's CEO. Welcome, Kristin Skogen Lund.
Thank you, Erica.
Let's start by having a short look at this video from a year ago.
Hello, everyone. The plan today was to stream an all hands from Stockholm, and in addition to the coronavirus, also talk to you about all the good things that are happening in Schibsted. However, due to the latest developments with the coronavirus and the new set of recommendations that have come from our health authorities, we decided to keep the agenda solely on the virus situation with this taped recording from Oslo. In this situation, the health of our employees and your families, as well as the overall society, takes first priority. And either way, we are talking about a global crisis now. Please be responsible, please stay healthy, and let us all try to tackle this situation as well as we can. Good luck to all of you. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, that was just a short clip from those first very dramatic days. Now more than a year has passed. What are your thoughts when you see this video?
Yeah, I mean, at that time, I had no idea that it would, what we were heading into. I think in that same recording, I said, we had to prepare for this could last several weeks. And here we are much more than a year later in the same situation. And although Corona had come creeping upon us, those, the shutdown and all of that happened very quickly. And it was a lot of uncertainty. We had no idea how dangerous it was, how it would affect us, how it would affect the business. So yeah, it was a very tense and shocking time.
True. You were also told to turn back when you arrived at Arlanda from Oslo on the 11th of March last year because of the Corona breakout. What did you think was happening at that time?
Yeah, I kept working and we were supposed to have this all hands from Stockholm, and I insisted on going to Stockholm and I landed the night before, and two of my colleagues called and really just, yelled at me, ordered me back. I said, you cannot be traveling right now. You have to come back. You have to deal with this from here. We have to send everyone home. And so I took that same flight back, and I'm very happy that I had colleagues who were more alert to the situation, and they had also kept everyone who had been skiing in the Alps away from the office. So thank God we had no contamination in the office before the shutdown either. So I was a bit of a slow adapter to the seriousness of that situation.
You were not alone, but you sent 5,000 people working at Schibsted home, and we have been home since. Were you and are you worried about not having control? I mean, my laundry basket has never been this empty.
Well, that's maybe a good thing, Erica. No, I never worried about control because, having employees is not about controlling, it's about trusting, and we trust our employees. And I have to say this year has really proven that trust very, very worthy, because I believe if anything, we are more productive than we have been. And like Anna said, for some reason, although being further apart, we are, we brought together by this one way or the other. And we actually see that, for example, collaboration efforts are working really well. So I think this remote work has functioned much, much better than we could have expected.
So what are the biggest challenges leading an organization that is working remotely, you'd say?
Well, I mean, initially it was all about that insecurity that I described, and lots of people were worried, and people who had small kids suddenly had them home from school and they were juggling all these different roles and tasks. And so it was really hard on many people, and many people were really, really worried. And then, of course, not all people have great home office environments. So it was about, taking care of those who needed it. It was about bringing as much communication and transparency and clarity as we could at the moment. And it was also about very practical things, having a shipment service from the office so you could get the equipment that you needed to furnish your home office, etc., things like that. But it's I think communication has been really key, and openness and transparency, and one more thing that I'm very happy that we made the decision early on not to lay anyone off, not even temporarily. And I think that created a one team. We're in in this together, let's fight this together type of feeling, which I think has served both our culture and also actually our business results in a very good way.
Yes, and how is it for you working from home or wherever you are right now?
Well, I'm a very extroverted and social person, and I source all my energy from talking to other people, but somehow it works for me because like now I really feel I am meeting you and being with you. I manage that through the screen. So I'm okay. But like also Anna said, what you lose is the spontaneous, unexpected interactions, and often creativity and inspiration comes when you least expect it in many of those encounters. And that's certainly a loss. So I, of course, look forward to things normalizing.
I also know that you are into music, since you are the chairman of the Oslo Philharmonic Orchestra. Has music in any way helped you through this year?
Yeah, well, music is the best medicine for most situations. So yes, that's been important, and it's also been an important task for me during this year to help support the orchestra. Also, they have been through a very difficult time.
Is there any particular piece of music that has helped you or inspired you during this year?
Oh, there are several, but I have a tendency to like quite melancholic music, and I think it's because it's a bit of a contrast to my own life. I'm a very happy-go-lucky type of person, and that the deeper, more melancholic music, I guess, helps me somehow to be a bit better in touch with the darker sides of life and feel some of life's reality somehow. And so for example, the requiems are types of music that I like.
Yeah, I think we have a short clip on that.
That's so powerful.
It is. You need to comment. What was this? What happened?
So this is the finale of Verdi's Requiem. It's that part is called Libera me, which means liberate me, and the whole choir sort of comes together in this absolute climax. You have the soprano that sort of rises above it all, and it culminates into this amazing climax. And the way I interpret it is like it's the celebration of the life that's ending, and then it sort of it drops into this silent ending where it sort of all just flows out and it's over. And
it's so beautiful.
Yeah, it's so powerful.
Absolutely. What kind of similarities or differences do you see if you compare Oslo Philharmonic Orchestra with Schibsted?
Yeah, well, we were both hit hard in the beginning, Schibsted also by the pandemic, but of course for the orchestra, it was the very existence of their business that was taken away. I mean, they couldn't have an audience, they couldn't, really perform their art and their music. So what we did was also there, we decided not to lay anyone off because musicians are there to play and perform. And then we quickly turned around and looked at what type of digital concepts we could create to be able to still communicate and give the music out to the people. And we arranged a series of digital concerts of different sorts. And actually, one of the concerts has now been seen by 3 million people around the world. So it's, in a way, we're reaching much more people than we used to, but in a different way.
How do you think this situation with a lot of restrictions for over a year will affect us in the long run?
Well, I think we will change our ways and habits permanently. I mean, when we go back to work, we will all be happy to go back to work, but I believe the office will be more of an arena for collaboration, and we will perform our individual tasks remotely like we do now. So that will change. We will travel less. The threshold for meeting digitally, has been lowered a lot. So we have gotten used to having meetings this way, which is also very efficient. It's also more sustainable. And then I believe our new habits of being more digital, buying things online and dealing with banks and doctors and whatever via the digital way is going to stay. Simply
true.
because it's efficient, it works.
True. You told me right now about perhaps not flying as much. Is there any other sustainable changes that you will think Schibsted will actually move on with?
I mean, yeah, it's very high on our agenda, and we want to make it our business to help solve the sustainability challenges. And our news media and our journalism play an important role, but also our digital marketplaces where we facilitate people being able to shop secondhand and thus save CO2 by not producing new stuff. And personally, I take immense inspiration from actually the experience of remote work. The fact that we were able to move everything remotely and work like we have for the past year shows us that we had a capability that we weren't really using. And if you portray that over to sustainability, I'm certain that we can do much better and live much more sustainable ways. But since we're not really forced to, we don't do it. But let's try to learn from the Corona experience and tell ourselves that we can do better.
And as strange as it might sound, Schibsted has also made some of its largest business decisions during the pandemic. As part owner of the Adevinta, we actually bought eBay's marketplaces. We also made some main acquisitions in Finland and are doing really well on the stock market. What's the secret?
Yeah, I mean, after the initial crash, we were helped that trends came back quite quickly. But then I think we mastered the task of dealing with the immediate crisis, but not losing sight of the long-term changes and opportunity that are always created in chismas like this. And we dare to be bold and punch above our league and go for the big bet at the difficult time. And it turned out to be very successful. So I'm very happy that we managed that.
But then, Kristin, one last question. If you look back and knew what you know today, is there anything you would have done differently?
Well, I am quite happy about the way we have handled Corona, all of us, and I'm proud of that. So I don't think I would change much there. But on a personal note, I could say that I certainly should have realized the severity of this crisis at an earlier stage. Luckily, I had colleagues who helped me deal with it. But I have criticized myself for that, and I regret that I could have been better prepared and seen it coming and the seriousness of it at an earlier stage.
But let's hope we just see this end out now. So thank you so much, Kristin Skogen Lund.
Thank you.
Cocooning, does that describe what we are all been doing this last year? Well, let's have a look.
Gotta think about it, gotta dream about it, gotta find a way to do the things that make you feel alone. Gotta think about it, gotta dream about it, gotta find a way to do the things that make you feel alone. Gotta think about it, gotta dream about it, gotta find a way to do the things that make you feel alone. Gotta think about it.
In his Future Report article, he describes himself as an office rat who struggled a lot in his home office. How did he actually survive this last year? It's time for my last guest for today, Dan Ouchterlony, Head of Private Finance at Schibsted.
No, I mean, I used to sit Oh, there's a bit of bad noise. Sorry for that.
No, it's
I used
perfect.
to sit,
No, it's
at the
perfect.
kitchen table, like most people with a laptop. There was really bad, working environment, breadcrumbs in the computer, definitely. Now I have a microphone, I have 2 screens, there's some lights. It's just a much better setup. The desk can go up and down. So, it's different. And I learned a lot, right? That first phase was just weird.
Yeah, it looked a lot better than mine, at least. But what did you have in mind when you wrote that article, when everything was in total chaos?
Yeah, so we brought home our gear and we just started working. I still struggle quite a lot, actually. I'm not a remote lover, but I love chatting by the coffee machine. I love having lunch with my colleagues. The random discussions. I spent 25 years navigating an office. I know how to behave in a meeting. I know how to cheer up a colleague that's sad. I know how to, ask questions or share a story. And, when I look sad, there's a colleague to pick me up. I do miss that.
But haven't we learned how to connect also on video, you think?
I think we have definitely a lot better. But still, I think it's hard to get through on an emotional level through the screen. I think the bandwidth is like really, really low. In my job, and most people's jobs, there needs to be some tough conversations sometimes.
Yeah, you wrote about that too. You had to turn an entrepreneur down. I don't know, how was that when you needed to do that over the computer?
Yeah, well, normally this goes well. It's something as an investor we have to do. It's a tough message to get, and we try to deliver it gracefully, of course. But this one meeting was a person I turned down that got furious. You usually don't get that in a real life meeting, but online that was even worse. I didn't actually know how to sort of deal with it, so I actually alt-tabbed away from the window and just tried to listen and speak back. that was hard.
I bet. You compared it by breaking up with somebody on text.
Yeah, that's the point, right? Humans, I think, also need to meet. Good times, good meetings, bad times, bad meetings. I definitely learned that the hard way. So
you are still an office rat then?
Yes and no. I haven't become the YouTube streamer generation despite all the gear, but by now I think I'm learning the upsides of working in the office and actually the upsides of not working in the office. I can leave and pick up the kids at school. I no longer have a gold card with the airline. That's the first time in a long time. And instead, I've been working. I've been efficient. I'm really efficient now in some aspects. I'm a little bit less sure if I'm able to be creative and to create those connections. But I think we're getting better on figuring out the balance of high intensity connections and efficiency in a good way.
Yeah, I know you have listed some trends for remote working life, summed up by the remote guru, Chris Hurd. What do you think will be the most important impact on this new way of life?
Yeah, so I interviewed Chris. He's a founder, startup founder, First Base, and some of the things he's looking at is just mind-boggling. I picked a few here. First of all, I think competitive companies just need to offer people to work remotely, especially for expert roles and certain tech roles. We try to recruit the best people in Stockholm and Oslo and different locations, but they could also be now in Bermuda or Bangalore or Bergen, and some of our best people in the Nordics will certainly be approached by the Apples and the Googles and the Facebooks, to work for remote teams, or, approached by a startup in Miami to work for that team. So I think the world of knowledge work has really gone flat. And the world is flatter in that sense, right? If we look at the living condition in big cities, they're quite expensive and cramped, and you can live in the countryside instead. If you have broadband, that is, And some people might want to move to an even bigger city. Let's move to Paris if you live in Stockholm, right? And you can work from there. So that's definitely going to change with long commutes. I don't think that will be that common going forward. I saw some kind of calculation, and if you stop commuting, that's 4 years of life that you save, or work if you're inclined to do more work. And when you meet up physically with colleagues, I think you will actually sit down in the office and meet, have the hard conversation, have the workshop, the debate, or the good conversation. Will you sort of sit down with your laptop and email the guy next to you in the same office? I think that's just ridiculous. So looking at those things, I think we're learning. And when I talked to Chris, he said, well, I see teams that work 1 full day every week in the office and 4 days at home, or even 1 week together somewhere in the world. And then the rest of the quarter, you go to your own place and just be efficient. But if you want to dig deeper, I suggest you check out Chris' Twitter feed. That's at Chris Hurd. It's really interesting.
Absolutely, and so much of what you said actually sounds like music in my ears. And Kristin, she also spoke about missing music. And what about you, Don? What have you missed the most during the pandemic?
Yeah, so except people and the connection and the colleagues, I'm missing, for example, mentioning music. I'm missing my rock concerts. I went to Metallica 2019 in Gothenburg. I was looking forward to Iron Maiden last year. That didn't happen. I had some scheduled with my friends. It will all cancelled, and I'm not even sure things will happen this summer. So I'm really looking forward to the season of 2022 on that front.
It's so sad, but thank you at least, Don, for sharing all this good information with us.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for joining us at this webinar. And stay tuned for more updates on our homepage and social media platforms, because there is a lot more to come. And after the summer, we will dive into how to reach a more sustainable future and how journalists would use AI. So stay tuned and hope to see you then. Bye.